Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Soul Connected with our new podcast show called Two Spiritual Academics. And I'm here with Dr. Ann Simpson, and
Hiya.
she has an EDD in education. And I am Professor Aley Martin of Humanities, sort of. And we're going to try to see what we can talk about that might bridge gaps between intellectualism and intuition, or spirituality and academia. So welcome, Ann.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you, Aley. I'm really happy to be here. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me to join. And thank you to the community for watching and participating in this. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we came up with this idea um, because we wanted to work together. We wanted to do some
Mm.
research together. We wanted to combine our both of our interests in spirituality and our interests in academics and different disciplines. And
Yep.
so we came up with the following book. So I'll let you introduce the book to everybody that we're going to
Yes.
start with.
So this
Yeah.
is a fantastic book. And I hope if any of you are so inclined to have a read. But it's basically called Science, Being, and Becoming the Spiritual Lives of Scientists. And it's written by a gentleman, a PhD, Paul J. Mills, who actually has his doctorate. I think he studied, he's in sciences, health
Yeah.
policies, that kind of stuff.
Healthcare policy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think University of San Diego.
Hmm.
Um, but he's also a very spiritual human being, and he felt it was really important to conduct this series of interviews with different scientists who actually have spiritual lives, and what the current kind of state of being is for scientists to keep that part of their life separate, that it's
Hmm.
not acceptable to actually intertwine them or even discuss these things in a professional capacity in their jobs and their work, etc.
Right. Right.
And so for us, I think this has been really wonderful to say, hey, there are actually other people out there. They're just hidden, but wow, what great stories.
Yes, absolutely. As academics working in an academic situation,
Mm,
both of us are not really in the scientific
no,
community per se, although Anne has looked into some quantum physics, I believe, and
yes,
other
I have.
things like
Yeah,
that. But we get looked at funny if we are sort of spiritual people that believe in something else, but then as an academic everybody wants definite proof of something. So
absolutely. If it's not observable and measurable, forget about it. And if
yeah.
it's not observable and measurable down to the, minute details, then it's not acceptable in the scientific community. And I get that. And what's really interesting is some of the people, so what he's done is he's gone through and done a qualitative study. So what that means is
Hmm.
he's interviewed people, he's pulled themes from all the interviews to see if there's similar topics, and then
Yep.
wrote, just so you guys know, in terms of what we're talking about, it's kind of like a loose case study. It's not an academic journal case study, but it's case study about all these people and their spiritual lives and what are the similar themes and learnings from it. And
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of these guys are quantum physicists.
Hmm.
A lot of them are
Hmm.
STEM people, sciences, technology, engineering,
Hmm.
mathematics, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah, so these people are traditionally just numbers, quantitative,
Right.
mathematical analyses, have this amazing, rich spiritual lives. And,
Hmm.
how do they make them work together? So, yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so
Right.
that's the book.
And we have seen, and including in this actually, is an observable testimony from Dr. Eben Alexander, who has been
Oh,
on YouTube and had written his own books about his own NDE that he had, and he didn't believe in NDEs. He didn't believe in anything,
right.
spiritually connected, because if I believe he was a surgeon, and or
Yes.
is a surgeon, yeah.
Yes.
And so everything for him was, real medical, real scientific look at
Hmm.
things. But there are a lot of people that are in that realm who have had a myriad of different spiritual experiences and have been opened up to that realm, even though it doesn't make sense in their academic course of work. Yeah.
Right. And for him, he was happy to talk about it after he was, I think it was a medically induced coma, meningitis or something crazy like that for
Something
5
like that.
days.
Yeah.
And something happened to him in that 5 days. He was in an altered state somewhere else. Even though his body was shutting down and all kinds of things were happening to him. And I personally don't need an NDE, near death experience. For those of you that don't know what that, I
Uh-huh.
no, thank you. But for some people, it
Yeah,
does take that particular push to experience that,
it does.
and that was I guess depending on who you are and what you think, it really depends. But I do think things happen for a reason, and obviously because he was very, very logical driven and whatnot, and that he experienced that, and now that he's come out and done all this other research, is really speaks volumes in terms of the importance of this, and
Right.
in terms of his own personal journey, but also, hey, this happened to me, and then it gives opportunities like other researchers. Hey, we're not alone.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
We've seen people like
yeah.
Brian Weiss and a few
Mm.
others who
Oh,
have
he's
done
great. Yeah.
hypnotherapy and
Yes.
brought people into the regressive states, but they sort of get ostracized, don't they, by the
Yes,
community?
and he's at
Yeah.
Harvard, I think. He was at Harvard. He was practicing, maybe he had tenure. So I think a lot of these
Mhm.
people, they get to a certain point and they're recognized in the echelons of their university, and then they get funding no matter what, and they've got permanent job placements, so they don't have to worry about if they
Yeah.
do a tangential book. Like, this is not a research study per
Right.
se, but it was conducted in the research kind of modality without being published in a journal. But I
Yeah.
think he did it also so it could speak to people like us, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. No, it's very difficult to go through academic journals if you're not an
Oh yeah,
academic that's used to reading them, because it can be very dry.
it
Dry work.
can be very
Yeah.
dry, and it can
Mhm.
be non-personal, but and there's definitely a prescriptive way of writing. And when you
Yes.
do earn a doctorate or a master's degree or anything where it teaches you how to be a researcher, you've got to prove to show that you know the modalities of these things,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the way to go about it, and the way to acknowledge, stand on the shoulders of giants. Isn't that what Isaac
Right.
Newton said? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
formulate your ideas from everybody else, put them together, see if those ideas apply to the day that you've got or not or whatnot, and then in that story you got to write it up and then summarize it somehow.
Right.
And then
Right.
those findings might be a little attribution to somebody else's research. So it's very much a community based type of thing. But also, I
Mhm.
think the challenge in the community is if it's very outside of that community ways of thinking, then you're outside of the box and there's something wrong with you and you're kind of poo-pooed. You know what I
Right. You're
mean?
ostracized. You are.
Oh,
You're
definitely.
you're told that you're weird and such.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really
I've
a
gotten
shame.
personally, I'm part of this research group and I was introducing my research. And the looks I got because my research is interdisciplinary, so it takes different schools
Right.
of thoughts. And so
Yep.
this research group was only one side of that school of thought. And I saw the look on the face of some of the researchers in that group, and it was just like, what planet are you on? And I'm like,
Yeah,
clearly,
I
this is
get it.
not where I need to be. So,
I get it. Yeah, I had written a paper bringing in some ideas from interdisciplinary because I also
yeah.
love that, and I
Yeah.
was told that it was too much conjecture. And I
Oh,
thought,
yes.
well, isn't all academic work conjecture? And I said, I believe that I
Mm,
showed you enough examples,
yeah.
to prove my point. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah, but
everything's
I
different.
mean, it's part of becoming and being an emergent researcher, as they say,
Mhm.
or tried true researcher. And I think for me, the safe space is I'm in a type of role where I'm not actually required to do research in my capacity in my job. I'm not contracted to do it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't have to produce so many journals per year.
that's
Although
good.
they really love the fact that I've got a doctorate and it really does, it's directly related to my work.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm an abnormal academic researcher in that kind of scope of things. So for me, I also gives me the freedom to not worry about other people's opinions.
That's really a good place to be. That's a wonderful. And I've been working as an adjunct professor at numerous colleges for the last 25 years, and I don't have that. I don't have necessarily that freedom as other people would because I'm not tenured. But at the same time, I don't believe there's anything that that doesn't go outside the scope of humanities. I really do, because it all talks about how we're human, and so I chose that specifically just to be aligned with that idea that what affects us as humans is important. So he starts his book with a wonderful foreword by Deepak Chopra.
Oh yes, that was the one.
And I felt like he really set the stage for us to jump in with what we wanted to learn, and then a special commentary by Ken Wilber, who is one of the big scientific names, and what he does, which is a lot of research as well. And I actually really enjoyed reading it. I think maybe now I understand Wilber more than I thought I did before. But then we go into the I believe it's him, Mills, in the introduction, the Galactic Center, talks about galactic alignments and so on. And he grabbed me there. The fact that he brings up the awakening and how we can come through different processes for our awakening. I love that.
Yes, and he tells a really great story there where he learned to meditate because it was 60s, 70s, kind of the hippie times, and he was under a tree, and he just learned, first of all, how to do some meditation. But then what he did is one day, after like a week or two of practice, he got under a tree, and then instantly he had this profound experience.
So you don't have to have an NDE always. You can have these other experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking, exactly. Have you had any profound experiences like that where you just meditated and then all of a sudden something went boom or anything like that?
A couple of times when I have, the first time when I was trying to raise my Kundalini, and I was also told not to raise it too fast because some people have gone insane, apparently. I don't know. But I've had some really profound experiences with deep meditation. I really have. Just feeling floating and stuff. Yeah. How about yourself?
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I actually ended up following this meditation, and I ended up in what's called a Merkaba. So I was traveling.
Yes.
So I've got a little crystal one on my desk. My daughter made
it. That's nice. Yes.
So I was outside of my body. This light of me ended up in this energy thing, and next thing I know, I was above my house, and then I was above where I live, and then I was in space, and then I was just like, oh my word,
Yes.
But this is after months of meditation and all that kind of stuff, and then it was one of the most. I really felt we are really part of this whole world, this whole community, this magnificent ether, or lack of a better term, beyond. It's a space in between. Like there's this author called Buber. He's a German philosopher, and he called it das Zwischen, which means between. And excuse my pronunciation, but he said that the in between is where the thing and the intermental processes happen, and where great spiritual awakening can occur. So I think about that a lot, and so that's also kind of where my research from when I was going through the doctorate kind of brought me into the spiritual space, because I really learned that the conversation between you and me and that space in between is really, really significant, and it's not empty, people.
Right?
It's not empty.
Not empty. No, it's not. He says part of our intelligence is a spiritual intelligence. And so even if we're, and that doesn't mean religious. If you have a religious experience and that's what you want to call it, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. But
absolutely.
Spiritual experience could be a bit different, even though we know that there have been others who, the mystics that were in the past, like Saint Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross and so on. They were always teetering on the edge because they were academics, but they also were religious. And yeah, they had to be really
Yeah.
careful. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do. And it's in the perception of the beholder, or the
Right.
the experiencer, I suppose is what I'm saying, right?
Yep. Yep.
And how they perceive it versus how they tell us and how we perceive it are going to be two different things.
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. Because the perception is in the eye of the beholder. Absolutely. Yep.
Same thing happens in the intermental process when you read, you know.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's like having that person right there. It's like Dr. Mills is standing right there telling me the story, but I can't ask him a question. So it's only in how I digest it and how it makes sense in my world,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So he does talk about the 7 stages of consciousness, which I was not even aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of these, but like transcendental, which is a lot of self-awareness. And then we have cosmic and divine and unity. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of them. And each one actually tears up. It seems to tear up one level higher than the other one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Did he say, help me in my memory, did that go along with chakras or no? No, that'd be something different. There's 7. There's more actually.
7 is such a spiritual number that it just, it could, it could, the way that it's set up.
There's another research paper for us to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So the author wrestled with how and what to share with others because of his scientific concern for his job more than anything. He was worried he wouldn't be able to find anybody that would be willing to also do the same thing. And so, yeah, but he did. He found.
And then as soon as he opened up, other people started gravitating to him. And then eventually there's that center that they opened up. Oh gosh, I don't know which page it's on, but he opened up a research center. And of course it comes down, research always comes down to the money and how maybe zeitgeisty your research subject is. So sustainability is really big right now for research, or maybe CRISPR technology is really big and there's a lot of money going into it and whatnot.
Sure.
But in terms of the spiritual realms, how do you get funding for that kind of research? This is self-funded, right? Yeah.
Right. No, you don't usually do. Talk a little bit about the topic that you wanted to speak on.
The quantum realms, or actually, there was something towards
reductionism.
I don't know, it was on page. Oh yeah, reductionism. Thank you. So in research, it's really focus your topic and keep it really reduced to the one research question that you're focusing on, and it's usually highly targeted, right? And that's really traditional for all kind of research. And the thing about it is, and this is on page 177, when it's a second paragraph down, it says, it starts with the greatest advice I can give others. Second sentence in, it says, when faced with the experience and observation that defines one understanding of the world, we must be open to unexpected explanations and possibilities outside the conventional narratives. So what that's saying to me is, okay, yeah, you can go down to this level, but actually, if there are unexplainable observations that you make, don't discount them and keep them out of your study. Make sure that you have a discussion about them, because there's a reason they're there. And it may not prove your research question or whatever, but for me, it's like, you know what? There are a lot of things that are unexplainable, but are equally important to consider in research to me.
Because it's the spiritual experience can be unexplainable for many. In other words, what has happened to me, I can tell you in mere words, but you didn't experience it. So,
Yes. And also that the conscious thought versus the feeling that you receive before you get the conscious thought, right? So the conscious thought, the thought that's based on what you see and observe in your environment versus that gut feeling that's going, hang on a minute, So for an example of this for me was, I got this gut feeling when I was reading about dialogism, which is called dialogic It's a guy, a philosopher, a Russian philosopher called Mikhail Bakhtin, and something with it just stuck with me and really resonated. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my research, whatever. And I'm like, I've got to incorporate this in my study. This is really important, and I don't know how I'm going to make it work. But what it led me to was the other part, which was the whole research onto quantum entanglement. And then it just kind of blew my mind open with quantum physics and understanding that. So even though it was kind of just a generic philosophy and it wasn't really highly pinpointed, it took me on a journey to that so I could take the larger picture and then bring it down to the smaller, right?
Right.
But
Right.
I knew it was important to explore because well, I hadn't seen it anywhere else for
Yeah.
me in my journey,
Yeah.
in my research journey.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. Anyway, but the other thing was scientism, which is kind of a philosophy of research. Science is actually kind of a religion. And if you don't do it the way they do it and based on their expectations and norms, that it's actually not part of that system, then you can't be a scientist to be part of it. So
Uh-huh.
you have to be expected to perform in the ways that science is done to be able to be included as part of that community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's missing out. And back
Yeah.
to that quote, so you're missing out on unexpected explanation and possibilities outside of conventional narratives. You're missing out on that.
Right.
And I think that additional lens can give us a richer understanding of the science versus the emotive, the emotional, the human experience, the humanities, as you're talking to, Aley. Yeah.
Wow. That's fabulous.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I love this book. This book is really cool. It's validation.
It is a good book. It is. Yeah. It is. When you get into the stories, they get a little redundant, but
yes, they do. There's
it's kind of redundant in a nice way, since you've got so many people pretty much telling a story about where they came up with their own spiritual life and how that impacted both ways. And so, yeah. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
Here's another one that I really liked. Mind, we are told, is not the byproduct of matter, but the other way around. Mind, we are told, is not the byproduct of matter, but the other way around. So, even though we're observing and looking at technology, Aley, you're muted. I hope you're okay. I think she's got her dog there. So what this means is that we are beyond matter and mattering and things that we see. There's also another element here, and that's it's part of one of the spotlight. It's a gentleman who wrote books on the self-aware universe with your immortal mind. So it's all about Big Bang and quantum physics. But so it's the physical versus the non-physical and how they connect, and that's where the quantum field comes in.
Wow.
And the spooky effect from Einstein and all that good stuff with the double slit experiment and all the quantum physics. So all the quantum physics does is it explains that in a mathematical, totally scientific way. And people, I am not a quantum person at all. I'm not a scientist, okay? But the way I understand it is the proof of beyond 3D, that something that happens on this side of the universe here in this moment with me can be happening in an alternate part of the universe as well simultaneously.
Right.
Yeah.
And isn't it always the idea also of the butterfly flapping its wings and how it affects everything? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Really a cool idea.
Yeah. I mean, look, here we are at different parts across the world, Aley, and we're in this shared space.
That's right.
That's non-local reality, like non-geo-specific, but we're able to have this really intense, really cool conversation.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
That's the beauty of it. I know. And who would have thought, even 20 years ago, that it would be this extensive. Yeah, it's more extensive than it was for them.
Yeah, definitely.
I would be remiss not to bring up one of my favorite people, which is Joseph Campbell. He was a mythologist, and he is brought up in here because he is the one that started the monomyth, or the hero's journey, and he talks about how everything that we do follows this certain path, the circuitous path, and all the places that we have to come through in order to learn and grow and be. And he also brings up Maslow. He brings up a few other folks, and I kind of like that he did that interdisciplinary look into some of these other people and what their thoughts and ideas were. So that was important to me.
And he even quoted Robert Frost on the page, chapter 3, page 99. I am not a teacher, but an awakener. I thought that was great.
And that's what we all can be, no matter if we are teachers or we're just people that are interested. We're keeping our fingers in the pot. So
and it's a tough space to be. I mean, there's very few. I mean, in terms of my awakening, spiritual awakening, and being an academic, there's only very few people who know in terms of my work realm that I do this. But I don't hide it. If people ask
nothing
me,
to hide. And he brings in Einstein, and Einstein's been attributed to so many things that I don't even know. There's actually a meme out there that says, I did not say that with this picture. But he says here, the most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is a sensation of the mystical. It has all of the true science. And he whom his emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in as good as dead. In other words, if you can't take in and bring that to life, why bother?
Yep, and I agree. Completely. No, it's very profound. Yeah, so there's some cool stuff in this book, that's for sure.
There really is.
And actually what I've found is the more I've been seeking this, a lot more scientists and researchers are actually saying, well, hang on a minute, there is something to this. There's another book out, I think it's by Hayes. It's called Why Woo Woo Works. Woo woo. Why spiritual work. This guy is like a PhD in chemistry or something. But he saw, I think his story is about the effects on his mother of meditation or something. She went through, a real tough time. But he pulled in research studies to explain, why does meditation work? Why does this work? It's really interesting. So
we're getting more validation.
We're getting more validation, and it's okay outside of scientific journal realms to publish these things, which was a lot more open than it used to be. It used to be scientific journals only and books, nothing else. But actually people are kind of spreading out to the kind of more nonfiction side of things as well, which I thought was quite interesting.
That's very true. This other book that I'm reading really opened my eyes because I knew we were talking about this today. But this particular book said that we really need to look back at the French Enlightenment times, because we did have reason, and we did have art, and we did have scientific discovery, and they were sort of all brought together in this big, So we have had it, but as history moves on, then it got as history moves on, it gets just like everything else. Things get changed, and they say, oh, poo-poo on that idea. But maybe we're heading into another one, because reason and ingenuity realized their full potential then. But, then there were some times after that, the wars and the money and the fears and so on brought in all the things later on that would bring it down. Like, even Darwinism came after that.
No, I would agree with that. And it's hard. I think it's scary right now to be an academic in the world and to make statements without the expectation on academics is create a presence for yourself that's accepted by your peers socially online, write like crazy until you get a following, present like crazy, do all these things like crazy on top of being really good at social media channels and those types of things.
Right. And if you're
only within that world,
only, and if you're a teacher, that's your secondary job, as being the instructor, because you're supposed to be doing all this other stuff. And what about those of us? That's why I never really went for full time, because I said to myself, I love to teach, and so in order to do that and not have to have all these other things that were demanded of me, was much
Yeah.
easier. So
And the irony is, when you're at a university, isn't it about the students first?
I know
And it's not.
it's capitalism is what it is. There, it's the money.
Especially the big name universities. These are
Sure.
really business organizations that are trying to get the big money in for the big research funding, for the big researcher names.
Yeah.
And then they pull in the neophyte, emergent researchers in to teach the classes. And it's not that we're in a state of flux in academia right now.
We are.
Hugely.
We are.
Yeah, especially, with the whole chat GPT thing coming in. I mean, we can have another chat about that another time. But, in terms, no longer is the sage on the stage an acceptable
That's right. That's
role.
Right.
And technologies have been a great disruptor in this. And
It
also
has.
leveling the playing field for equality and equity amongst, students or
Yes.
wannabe students.
And I'm
So
glad about that.
And you don't have to go to university to become educated, right? I mean,
That's
anybody who reads a book
That's right.
can form an
That's right.
opinion.
And it's never too late. It's never too late either. No.
Yes,
It isn't.
absolutely. It's
I
just honor
think
your
that's
journey and what's fascinating for you, right? Excuse
That's
me, Alan,
right.
go ahead. Yeah,
That's right. No, it's okay.
Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure that those people that are watching us,
Yes.
we're going to tackle different things, talk about different things, but
Yes.
we want to make it so that it's understandable to the general audience, while at the same time just exploring things that we're interested in and that you're interested in. If you have something that you would like us to talk about, let us know, because we really feel that there is room for this discussion. And spirituality in academia or intellectualism and intuition, they can marry each other very well. It's just figuring out how that works for you.
Yes, and a few of those famous scientists who've had discoveries and they were having problems cracking codes, you'll hear stories about, I had a dream about it. Monkeys running around in a circle holding their hands. And what was it? Some kind of molecule, or I don't know. Some of you scientist folks can write in the chat what that was. But, where did they get that inspiration from in their brain? That was, and
Einstein did the same thing.
Yeah.
Einstein, they figured out some molecular thing, after a dream that they had. So, so we all have the potentiality to be Einstein. There you go.
Well, maybe not that good at maths, but that's
maybe not.
They call mathematics maths where I live. So, anyway, but in physics.
I understand. I was not a math and physics person myself. So I understand. But
here's another point too. I wanted to make, Aley, on page 179, second paragraph down. So I think it's talking about the voice in our head, our linguistic brain. So the gut kind of feeling plus the speaking voice, and if you're neurodiverse, it might come across differently. It might be you get movies or thought movies without words in your brain. It could be just a feeling, and then thought words come in. So we're just this really highly tuned machinery that all this messaging is coming in at us, and it's in us, and we're digesting it and figuring out if that makes sense and we want to keep it or not, that kind of thing. Anyway, it's called Cultivating a Mindset in a Hypnagogic Space Between Awake and Sleep. So some great thinkers have been able to get between awake and sleep, just like that half hour before you go to bed or that half hour you wake up, whatever. And it has offered creative energy to some of the greatest scientists, philosophers, and artists. So Albert Einstein was one, Thomas Edison was another one, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Salvador Dali. Okay, I think he could have added some female researchers in there, but I'll forgive him for that.
Like Marie Curie. Marie Curie.
But the dreamy, yes, exactly. So dreamy, that dreamy space of the in-between enables an uprush of creative genius and insightful insight that fueled some of their greatest contributions. So I guess for me, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try, before I go to sleep or when I wake up, say, hey, what kind of messages do I need to know about? What do you want me to think about? Or just, put something in there that I'll remember when I wake up, or, maybe it's a dream, and see where it takes me. Maybe that's some inspiration for moving forward, or when I'm thinking about something for a long time and I can't quite get it,
Right.
put it out
Yeah.
there and see what it comes up with.
Put it out there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And any kind of meditation,
Oh, yeah.
is very valuable if you can't
Mm.
be, and that is actually, don't you think that's a hypnagogic state?
Yes,
Is that
it is.
meditation? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I was taking a meditation class, and my teacher, goes to India quite often, she does this meditation, and she's like, "Don't fall asleep. Agree to yourself that you won't fall asleep." But you get into this such a deep breathing state that just
Yeah.
all this stuff comes in. It's just like, wow.
Uh-huh.
And and I have fallen asleep. The first few times that she did it, I would always fall asleep. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, no, I can't fall asleep.
I'm losing all the
Right there.
fun.
Clearly,
Yeah.
I was exhausted from my thinking
Sure.
self. But
Sure.
that when you're in that, the thinking mind's turned off, and when it's turned off, you're allowing space in your brain to receive.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I think if we received more in that state, wow. I mean, just think about what kind of inspiration we could get
Yep.
for either our research or for our day or for our families or for,
True. That's true.
the next paragraph in the book we're writing, or,
Mhm.
whatever it is, how to solve that problem.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people also do find that their best ideas come from the shower. They're in the
Yeah.
shower, and
Yes.
the problem is the pen and paper would be pretty soggy in there, but
Yeah.
it's sort of an altered form of, if you're enjoying it
Mhm.
and you're feeling the water pouring on you, it's sort of an
Mm.
altered state.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
like automatic writing is like that.
Uh-huh.
For me, and I haven't had this for a while because I finished my thesis and I wrote a bunch of chapters and I got stuff published, whatever. And it was like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
not writing anymore. I'm just fried. I can't do it. But I just recently had to write some reports, and I just got into this flow state.
Yeah.
What's his name? He's a Hungarian gentleman who
The
lives.
Haley chick sent me high.
Yeah, thank you. That's autotelic state. So that's
Uh-huh.
basically when you're doing something you love so much that you lose all track of time, space, whatever. You're just in the zone kind of thing.
Right.
And I was
Right.
doing that. And when I'm in that, I read this back and I'm like, oh my God, that was really great. Did that
That
really
was
come
me.
from
Oh,
me?
I've had that. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're channeled from some great
Yes.
mind or something. How could I have written that? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
get
And
it. Yeah.
everybody watching this, I guarantee you have one thing that you've done in your life that you love doing and you lose track of time.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Absolutely.
And
Or
that's
you gain
also, yeah.
time. Sometimes you
Yes.
gain time. Have you noticed that as well? Yeah. Yeah.
So explain that to me. What do you mean by gaining time? Like,
Well, what I mean is, I will be somewhere doing something and enjoying myself a great deal, and I'll say
yeah.
to somebody, "What time is it?" And they'll say, 2:00. I'll say, "It's only 2:00." Oh, I thought it was like
Yes.
6. That
Yes.
kind of thing. Yeah,
Yes.
you're
I
not
get that.
actually
Yeah.
gaining time, but in a way you are, because your mind
Yeah.
says it's not the right time. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a happy place to be in.
It is. It's like a big present when that happens.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
it
Yeah.
is.
And because life isn't always like that. So when it does happen, it's like a gift,
Yeah. It's a gift. Definitely a
Yeah.
gift, Ann. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
it
Awesome.
is. There is a
Um,
lot here. There is a lot, but I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought up Dr. Chick Sent Me High. He's written several books. He's written
Yes.
Flow. He's written
Yes.
Finding Flow. And he's
Yes.
also written a book on creativity that I've read, and I love it.
Okay, I
It's
haven't read
all
that one.
tied to that. It's all tied
Yeah.
to flow. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the
Mhm.
educational literature, depending on what your article is, they do quote him quite a bit on the autotelic
Yes.
state, the
Autotelic
flow
states.
state. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
the official name for it. If you want to look that up, go for it. Yeah, so I find it really, really cool.
Yeah.
And the thing that's also interesting, on chapter 6 on page 181 that I saw, be sure that there's a reason for these states and that we need to build self-regulation before getting too deep in the practices. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that speaks to, and I don't know what you're talking about. I've never had an autotelic state. Well, that's okay. I've never meditated. I can't meditate more than 2 minutes. I can't do
Right.
this. Hello,
Right.
I started at the same place as you. Okay.
Right.
So what you want to do is start with small incremental steps, like 1 to 2 minutes. Just close your eyes and just try to get your words out of your head. 2
Yeah.
minutes. And then the next day, see how that went. And then do it for 2 minutes until you finally get up to 3 minutes without the words out of your head. And next thing you know, 5 minutes comes.
Yep.
This all happened for me, my personal journey, really when COVID hit and I was so full of fear and the whole country, boom, locked
Mhm.
down. I was
Yeah.
ready to just talk to people. And this is when I started it. And I started doing mantras because I couldn't meditate. So I
Good for
just said,
you.
okay, if I just say the words over and over again, then I'll just,
Uh-huh.
the words will come out, but then my brain will be somewhere else and I'll think something else, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it got to the point where I don't have to say the words now. Now my brain can go out of
Your
that
brain can
and I
do.
can just
Okay,
be quiet.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've made progress. Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what it happened for me. So, you
Yeah.
gotta, was it a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step,
It does.
right?
It takes practice. I will
So
tell
it
you
does.
this. Last
Mm.
night when I had Dina on, the light language singer,
Oh, she was
um,
fabulous.
she
Thank
was
you for that.
absolutely fabulous. And when I
Yeah.
laid down and
Mm.
she sang, I did not have any thoughts in my head. I was able to meditate to that kind of
That's so
thing.
cool.
And I felt very light and very well, So if you're
Yes.
feeling like you need, and there's other meditations, folks, on YouTube that you can find, but
Oh, yeah. They're
it's always nice to just, and it doesn't blank you out, but it
yeah.
takes you on a journey, I guess. And
Yes.
that's part of learning how to relax. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And in that hypnagogic state he calls it, the in between, because you're
Yeah.
removing the thinking. That thinking thought process takes so much space out of your mind that you lose
It does.
sometimes sight of the feeling, emotive, intuitive side. So if you can just learn to park it just for a few
Is that
minutes.
called the monkey mind? Is that the monkey mind?
Maybe that's what
Okay.
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
As for every state, there's about 1 million theories, right? So
Sure. Sure. But I'm thinking,
yeah,
oh, I got to go to the bathroom. I got to get the laundry. I got to finish this. I got to do that. Oh,
yeah,
did I forgot? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I feel like I have a invisible monkey on my mind a lot for
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just being so, and some people, like you said, how people in the shower can receive things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people who swim or just do that kind of movement, so active relaxation, kind of, they get inspiration like that, or out in nature, walk at the
Sure.
beach or in the forest, or just just being or grounding or
Immersed in the being.
earthing.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's where inspiration comes from too. So
I think about this too. I think that when we
mm,
first learned how to drive a car,
yeah,
we had to keep our attention completely on how, what do we do first? Where do we turn the lights on? And
yes,
not necessarily the driving part, because that
yes,
you have to pay attention to. But the
yep,
other things become
just getting
second
attention.
nature to us.
Yeah, yeah,
They become second nature, and we
yep.
just do them because they need to be done. And
Yes,
so,
exactly. And then that second nature and that training, that rote memorization and rote stuff keeps that monkey part active, but
yeah,
opens up the other part to be receptive.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Hmm.
For lack of research science, I'm sure there's a research project somewhere out there
There's
in the world.
probably one. Yes, we can't
Okay, so
quote it, but
any of you guys that are wanting to be researchers or want to actually look up research articles or anything, there's something called
Mhm,
scholar.google.com, and
mhm.
any academic school has access to that. And what it is, it's like the Google Scholar for research.
Right.
So we've got
Yep.
the whole universe of research universe of Google, but then they've
Uh-huh.
created a separate universe for everything research oriented. So that is a really great place to start if you want to read any literature, and actually get the facts on something. And
Yeah.
I've done that. I did
Yeah.
that once. I was going through a health thing, and I'm like, right, I'm not going to listen to what my doctor says. I appreciate my doctor. She's fabulous.
Right.
But I just want to get the facts for myself. So I would go
Sure.
research the article and read it, or get the scientific book out, even if I had to sit there with a dictionary and figure out what they meant all the way through the whole thing. But yeah,
It's because
it,
you've empowered yourself. And
Yeah,
we need to always empower ourselves, not listen to always just to what other people have to say. Very, very important.
exactly. And make
Yeah,
our own personal judgments with what resonates with us, if that makes
correct.
sense, you know?
Very much
So
so.
you may not like what you read. That's okay. But now you know, so you
Yeah,
can measure against that what is good with what your
that's
beliefs
right.
are.
That's right. And if you come
But
up
that,
with what's the word? Cognitive dissonance about
yes.
something is when you're reading something that just is totally out of the woods for you,
Mm,
and it just doesn't fit. Just remember that, you can discern what's right for you and what's not right for you. That,
exactly.
that's
And
important.
yeah. And same thing with, political events, whatever. Don't be
Mhm.
reliant on TV. Don't be
Yeah,
reliant on media. Use grab and pick and choose from all kinds of sources, read it, see where you can get the facts from, and if they're good sources, because that's
yeah,
also identifying if it's, like an Inquirer magazine versus, research articles, totally different sources of information, right?
I know.
So so
Well,
so then that way you can make, yeah.
it's funny you say that because yesterday in a congressional meeting, one of the chair of the congressional meeting was talking about something, and he brought
Oh
up, and
no.
he's a Republican, and he brought up Wikipedia as a source. And it was
Oh
so interesting to me to listen to what he, because Wikipedia is not a scholarly source. And
no.
so then another lady comes on and she says, well, I'd rather not, Wikipedia is good when you're in a hurry, but I'd rather quote from this source, and it's an academic source. And he kind of just, pat him on the head, like, you got to learn somewhere. It was perfect. I mean, it really was.
Oh, that's
It really
interesting.
was.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
see, so if this is a lawmaker,
Yes, they
and
should
they
know
may have
better.
had a staff. They should know better. Their staff should
That's
know
right.
to get the statistics from something,
That's
somewhere.
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Hmm.
But
Anyway,
so on page
yeah.
205, he does talk about compassion practices. And I really
Oh,
think that
cool.
I'd like to at least touch on that a bit. He says compassion practices can offer a useful emotional
Mm.
grounding during self
Yes.
transcending experiences. And, it says here they give some things give rise to
Mm.
anxiety or worrying thoughts. But if we practice compassion, even with ourselves, and say to ourselves, we
Yes.
need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to love ourselves and surround ourselves with loving compassion. It's a valuable a thing for us to do that.
And I totally agree with that and resonate with that, Allie, because I would
Mm-hmm.
say in terms of my own personal practice, I am my worst critic. And being but I am more than happy to be compassionate with everybody else out in the universe except for myself.
Right. I know. And
You
and
know?
this is a problem we all have. It isn't,
I
not
know.
unusual. Yeah.
I know what
Yeah.
happened. Yeah,
We're supposed
so
to
I
care about
agree with that.
ourselves, but we worry about what other people think. And that's crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the whole thing with academia. It is about what other people think. And that's
That's
based on that. And if they, how do you balance that?
right. Right.
Hmm.
No.
Yep.
Something we're going to have to talk about, I guess, in our
Yeah, and it's
in
within
our
that.
chats. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it
within
is
that
within that.
community, it's
It
really
is.
judgy. It can be a judgy, but also super amazing experience,
It
at the
can.
same time.
Yeah.
Like at a conference, somebody comes up to you after you've spoken, and they're like, I really love that idea. Let's talk. And you think, wow,
I
that's
know.
so
Yeah.
cool. But
It
then,
is.
then you get the people that are like, what planet are you on? And you're just
Oh,
like, okay,
that's not
that's your
research. That's
journey. Yeah, that's your journey.
that's your journey. I know.
I
That's a
forget.
shame.
Go on.
That's a shame, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing is if, and there are people that are trying to do this, but trying to bring in some of the research practices into topics that are considered woo woo.
Uh-huh.
That's a first step to bringing spirituality and make it more acceptable on the researcher side of things, I think. And that's kind of
Mhm.
where I'm seeing and my gut feeling is in terms of the research that's out there at the moment. But
Yeah.
I have to remember that's not that's anecdotally. That's not actually research informed by me. That's just what I've seen
Right.
and read and kind of an opinion I've formed. But I do think it's in an evolutionary process, and I do think that the big Great Awakening, COVID, and
Mhm.
academics are getting a lot more stressed out. A lot of them are getting laid off. with downsizing and people deciding to get their education in other places. And,
Yeah.
we're looking at the great shift in academia right now. I think we're
Yeah.
witnesses to something.
I think you're right.
And we've got one of the biggest disruptors is ChatGPT, depending on how you frame it. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, there are schools of thought are like, oh my God, we're going to die. And other people are like, yes, sweet, bring it in. Let's see how we can use it. Or I have no idea,
Sure.
but let's give it a go. You got all kinds of opinions. It's
Let's
really, really
and we need to
fascinating.
let people know that aren't in academia about it. It is a program that
Thank you.
essentially writes papers for you. So,
Yep.
so this is where academics are headed, and that's why we're kind of frightened, because not only is it going to be difficult for us to discern if the paper was written correctly and by that
Yeah.
person, but the other thing is there's information in there that's not necessarily true, and then we're
Yep.
dealing with people writing papers to get degrees and in certain topics. And if they didn't really write them and didn't do the research, how do they know the material? I hate to think a brain
Right.
surgeon would be sending out a paper and not have written it.
Or an engineer building that bridge where you drive over every
Right.
day and then it collapses because they got the maths wrong or the metallurgy wrong on the weld to hold it together.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, it's a safety concern. And
it is a safety
so
concern.
I think you need to kind of pull that back and go back to the whole basis of academic integrity. I mean, and so what that means is that you, as a student, promise that this work comes from you and not other sources, and that you will handle yourselves as a student in an appropriate and valued type of way. That a graduate from this particular institution is supposed to have this attribute, right? So
it's the honor system.
It's an honor system. But so what is it societally that's getting people to get to that point where they feel like, oh, I just need a way to rewrite this sentence. I'm just going to whack it into ChatGPT, or
because the computer is so vital to us. It's going to be very hard for people not to use it.
Well, and so for me, so I mean, maybe this is another topic for another time,
another day. Sure.
Yeah, but in terms, so it brings us to ethical issues and questions. And so I do think with, becoming, and this brings us to ethical questions about us, and also bigger questions about how we, as academics, and going through that system and learning how to be a researcher and do properly informed, qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods research, all those researchy topics, on top of acknowledging and allowing this to be part of who you are, and to what level this can inform and be a part of you as the researcher is where we are at. Because I think with this great awakening, I think a lot of people are realizing, you know what, I'm not going to work for a job that makes me write 3 papers a year, have 2,000 students, and try to give my students the love I need to, as well as produce this stuff. It's not worth it anymore. Or, I just think we're kind of at a great reckoning in terms of academia. I really do. Gone are the days that this is a permanent. Yeah, it's not a permanent
20
job.
years from now, you do look back on this in 20 years and we have to wonder what will have happened between now and then.
Well, we're witnesses to tremendous change in all aspects of our lives. And of course, this is just another area to be witness to. So, I do think it's really... So anyway, so we invite any of you that are keen academics or not, or just love reading books. I don't care. I don't care if you have 20 million degrees or not. It's just that you're interested in the stuff. We love your feedback. We
Absolutely.
love any books you want us to look at or consider, any kind of topics of conversation. That's what, we just want to create the space of safety, really, and fun. If we don't have fun, then what's worth it, right?
What's the point? I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
we need to get into our autotelic states, with these books.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ann. I had a very wonderful conversation with you. And thank you to everybody who's watching this later.
Thank you so much.
Let us know what you think. We're going to be doing some different stuff. So we hopefully won't be dry if you're feeling it's a little dry. We'll try to get some juicy stuff coming too. Okay.
Yeah, and please
Sounds
put your topics down, and we just love hearing from your feedback if you're
Yeah.
interested in this format too. That's really cool. And
Absolutely.
thank you, Professor Aley, for everything and all the wealth and
Yeah, thank you.
everything. And thank you for bringing me on this channel. I'm just really happy to
Absolutely.
be here
We're
and really
pleased to
happy to
have you.
move forward. Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Cool.
Have a
Okay.
great